or ethics committee processes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. First, I'd like to thank the city for instituting a process where remote public comments can be held and facilitated. Thank you very much for that. That fosters more community involvement and participation, which I think we can all agree is important. Currently, right now, there is a threshold for filing an ethics complaint, and they are a resident, registered voter, or property owner in the city of Ocean Shores. That's a pretty good standard to have. The city is accountable to the community members. If there is facts and evidence and information that would strongly indicate an ethics violation occurred, what difference does it make? Who brings it to the city's attention? It makes none. The value of a complaint is the merits of that complaint, not who brought it to you. An example would be if somebody through public records discovers unethical behavior, does that make me or that person that looked up those public records directly or indirectly involved in the incident? So first of all, I think having it being defined as directly involved is kind of vague and ambiguous and will be left up to the ethics committee. And to me, that's inappropriate. If you are a community member, a resident, an owner, a voter, a taxpayer of this city, you should have redress to the city. Another example, and this is just a hypothetical, if a city council member went in to intimidate a person or use their office to put pressure on them inappropriately in an unethical manner, and then there was follow-up by other governmental agencies, that person may be concerned about further retaliation by putting their name on a complaint. So the question is, why would a city council member vote yes to put a roadblock and an obstacle in between city government, accountability, and their citizens? Thank you for your time.
Mike Avolio, Citizen Ethics Board.
Hello, everybody. Mike Avolio. I live on Mount Olympus. I've talked to a lot of people about the possibility of getting a support going on a ethics board that is comprised of independent citizens. I think that's a necessity for our community. Seattle's got them. Olympia has them, Tacoma has them, all throughout the state has them. In fact, the whole country has them, but we don't have it here in Ocean Shores. And you gotta wonder why. Why can't we have a citizen board here to view ethics complaints? So I'm putting my support behind this idea. And thank you. There's no reason why it won't work here. If you want to build trust in the community, you have to understand that when you say no, we don't want that, we're going to govern ourselves, that you're putting yourself up for ridicule and maltrust. This is something the community wants. And if you Google it, there's a ton of information on Google about citizen-run ethics complaint boards. A ton of information. I was astounded how much information is out there on how to set them up and make them run correctly. And normally I just kind of wing my thoughts. I'm working off notes here and I'm not good at doing that, but I'm getting there. For an example, did you know that when you set up one of these boards, the mayor gets to pick 3 people? The council gets to pick 3 people. And then once that board is formed, they picked the 7th. I don't know if any of you knew that, because all the comments I've heard is that we're going to get everybody on the board that sees it one way. And I think the way, if you follow it down the steps the way it's set up, that you can actually get a well-run ethics board commission run by the citizens of this community. One other thing, elected officials are not allowed to be on that board. People who work for the city or the state aren't allowed to be on that board. They're private citizens that are doing this as a volunteer basis. And I think there's no better way to create trust in your community by having a board like that.
Nancy Milliman, Ethics Commission.
Mike, would you sit down?
Good evening, everyone. If the American system of government is to function properly, citizens must actively participate in its operations at all levels, but especially at the local level. Local officials have both a responsibility and a stake in keeping citizens fully informed about local programs and activities and giving them clear opportunities to play meaningful roles in determining local public policy and in carrying it out. Over the last several months, it has been clear to many that it is rather odd that an entity would be their own judge and jury, so to speak. As such, many have suggested that a separate and more unbiased ethics commission be established, possibly composed of one city council member and the remainder of full-time citizens with varying backgrounds. An ethics code should uniformly apply to all public officials. This includes elected officials, all city employees, appointed officials, and any other government-held position. And it could also include citizens serving on any commissions or boards when they are acting in their official capacities. It can include comprehensive conflict of interest provisions which prohibit certain relationships while mandating disclosure. It can cover corruption, abuse, fraud, bribery, other violations of the law, and non-criminal conduct which violates the Code's conflict of interest provisions. It can include an affirmative obligation to report suspected violations, which affirmative obligation has its own enforcement mechanism, and also have an independent enforcement mechanism for any violation. An ethics commission or board is an independent body which is designed to enforce the government's ethics programs, including violations of the ethics code and other applicable regulations. Ethics commissions can advise and make recommendations to city employees, officials, and the public regarding conflicts of interest, acceptance of gifts, and the use of city resources. A commission enforces the ethics law by imposing fines and recommending other discipline for violations. It also plays a role in educating city officers and staff on performing their duties in an ethical manner. Ethics commissions are typically made up of appointed officials who are in office for a predetermined term. Sometimes they will directly receive complaints and conduct investigations, but usually the commission's purpose is to hear the findings of an investigation and determine whether there is a violation and what the appropriate consequences should be. That's time.
Dean Shattuck, Positive Outlook.
Sorry. Jane Shattuck, Ocean Shores resident. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This election showed a clear desire for change among the citizens of Ocean Shores. The primary theme of the campaigns was centered on citizen engagement, a commitment that resonated strongly as reflected in the substantial 56% voter turnout in Ocean Shores compared to the 32% county voter turnout. This sentiment was unmistakably evident during the previous council meeting when the room was filled with individuals full of hope and enthusiasm, all eager to participate and contribute to the progress of their city. Citizen engagement is a cornerstone of a flourishing democracy. A majority vote system empowers every citizen, turning passive observers into active participants in the decisions that shape the future of their city. Imagine a city where every resident feels not only heard but truly listened to. A city where the diversity of thought and opinion is celebrated, not stifled. Various perspectives will create a stronger and more inclusive community. Involving citizens in the decision-making process is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to the strength of our democracy. A majority vote system ensures that decisions are reflective of a common purpose, promoting a sense of shared responsibility and ownership among the people. Let us not fear change, but embrace it as a catalyst for the progress that it can be, an evolution toward a government that is more responsive, more accountable, and more in tune with the heartbeat of the city it serves. Throughout the campaigns, numerous candidates organized informal meet and greet sessions resembling mini town halls in local coffee houses and other community-centric venues. Essential topics, innovative ideas, and viable solutions were presented in a relaxed yet productive manner. I encourage ad hoc committees to actively involve the community and urge every individual council member to connect with citizens. Just as some council members have consistently hosted their own community meetings, I hope that each council member can allocate the time at least once a month to engage the community in a relaxed, collaborative, brainstorming fashion. Our community harbors a wealth of knowledge and expertise that should not remain stifled or untapped, yet utilized for the betterment of our city. I look forward to working with our newly elected mayor and our council to contribute to the betterment of the city, and hope we can all welcome this new chapter with a positive outlook. Thank you. And I would just like to say there is someone back here laughing at us up here speaking.
I would like to express my gratitude and those of many, many others here for the excellent work that's been done by this council, by our mayor, our city administrator, our mayor pro tem. It's not easy to pick up in the middle where someone else dropped off, but I will tell you that John Martin was, as a freshman on the council, I remember him saying to my husband, we need budget guidelines. And my husband said, no, we don't, because we don't have any money to spend. Our guideline right now is not to spend anything. But John persisted, and he has gotten that. And if we continue to follow those guidelines, we will stay out of trouble. Ocean Shores has reached a point where it is envied and respected by the county, members of our state and federal government. We have gone from the laughingstock to an example of what can be done with consistent, strong leadership. And John, you have provided that. I so appreciate what you've done. Our mayor pro tem has been through hell and back during this election, and yet he has stayed firm and done the job that he was supposed to do. And we need to respect that, and all of the people, particularly those of you who were appointed during this session. You came together and you made our city do the right thing. Now, yes, there are 600 plus public records requests that were submitted that would lead one to believe either we have someone with a vengeance or there's somebody that really believes deep down that something's been amiss. However, that has not shown up in any audit, in any report anywhere, except for one that was submitted by, never mind. That was what do I want to say? I don't, okay? Thank you, and thank you to your families who put up with this. It hasn't been an easy time. John, I hope we see you do great things and go forward. You've been amazing. To those who feel unheard, I've been here 25 years, and I have never felt unheard. I've been told to shut up, but I've never felt unheard. Thank you.
Jane Shattuck, Ocean Shores resident. In regards to part 4 of the guidelines, I like the addition of the Public Safety Committee again. I just hope that the guidelines are clear on that, on the Public Safety Committee. I'm so happy about the Public Works Committee, of course, and the Finance Committee, that those are installed. But it seemed that the Public Safety one went to the wayside and that there wasn't much efficiency before with that. So just if we were very careful about the guidelines for that to be followed, I think it will be a great welcomed addition as long as we make it a very efficient one. I also hope that all of these standing committees allow citizen engagement and some collaboration with them also. Thank you.
Jan Hyatt, Ocean Shores. Thank you, Mayor. There's much information in here, and I would hope that the council would consider this as a first reading, first interpretation, first collection of information. Take it back, take a look at it with the suggestions, and come forward with a second reading. I would really think that might benefit all of us. Thank you.
Yes, we have Mr. Williams on council guidelines, and I don't have him on the other one, but that doesn't mean he's not prepared to speak twice to it.
Yeah, I'm on both, please. So you can hear me okay, Scott?
Hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much. I read this. I did not realize they were being combined. I didn't see anything. I mean, that's the way it really is, but there was no note in the agenda as I could see that we were combining these. But I want to just talk about this briefly. On the very first page of council guidelines under part 1, a very glaring omission is public communications to council, which should follow the board reports / presentations and before what's called staff reports. I hope you're not considering not having that on the agenda anymore, but it certainly looks like that. So I would like to have that put back in. Council communications, 3 minutes, and that should be put back in. Please explain to me how it got left out. And I don't have too many other comments. I guess if I read it a couple of times, I probably would. But I think that was my only important comment, and it was certainly a glaring omission. So I'll wait to hear about the second part. Thank you.
As Shannon Rubin, Canterbury, and as someone who's filed multiple ethics complaints, I don't believe that you should be limiting who could file them. I think Joe DeVore made some really good points. Sometimes something happens where you find out some information and it should be reported. Furthermore, in my role, in my capacity, I wouldn't really qualify as a resident, but I manage a property here. I still will be remotely, so if someone threatens me in email or something like that, even though I'm not a resident, I should be able to file an ethics complaint if someone's using their position in a manner that isn't appropriate. And my last comment is I don't believe that the election is completely certified until tomorrow, so you guys are deciding on things when some of you may not be sitting in certain chairs. So I would really ask that you wait to decide this, and that you consider having this be like a first go around of opinions and then come back with actually who's going to be in these roles. And then my last comment is I really feel like there should be a citizen board. I feel like you should not be your own judge and jury, and I think that you're biased when you're deciding on your own fates. And I really, again, think that if you don't do unethical things, then this shouldn't really be a problem.
Gina Rawlings, not a resident. And the reason that I'm speaking is that I actually want to second what Jan Hyatt said about limiting this to a first reading, and that you not both sections of this being limited to a first reading. Also, that I'd like to have more time to investigate what this is about. Having the ability to make a complaint about a sitting member of council as well as an employee, I think is very valid. Not that I'm going to pursue some antagonistic ways of communication, but I think that it's valuable. And I think that by limiting it to a first person, I think is difficult at best. And I would love to see a committee brought in of community members rather than just having it be the council voting on their own complaints. So I would appreciate you considering that. Thank you.
Good evening, community members, City Council and Mayor. I'm PJ Faria, an 11-year resident of Ocean Shores. Tonight I am requesting that we take a pause, that the Ocean Shores City Council not move forward by approving any changes to handling ethics complaints until a reevaluation of the process can be established and other public comments can be incorporated into such. We need to respectfully honor the position of handling matters of ethical integrity by involving the public through the creation of a committee made up of respected, non-biased community members rather than the existing city council policing its own behaviors. Allowing the public's voices to be heard, especially on serious processes such as these, will strongly benefit our community. Unfortunately, by not doing so, issues of distrust and division become a detriment to the citizens, allowing for rumors and unknown assumptions to take hold. When people stop talking and engaging, this is when problems occur, such as fear of retaliation for even filing a concern. City council members and the mayor are public servants. It is imperative that the public be permitted to play a role in the choice of who shall review any ethical charges brought forth against those publicly serving our community. Thank you.
I think if you look at the RCWs, the ethics violations are pretty well spelled out in the RCWs. And our ethics should be no tighter or no looser than what's required at the state level. Ethics violations instituted by a third party who wasn't part of the situation shouldn't even be heard. Now, I do not believe that I believe this is a quasi-judicial function of the council. And I think that is their responsibility. However, because of the way the previous resolution was written, people have taken slight with the way somebody pronounced a name or someone said something or whatever. The only thing I've seen close to a true ethics violation, I used to be required in a former life to brief both government employees and commercial employees on ethics. And I had to do that every year. And ethics is not, you don't like the person sitting next to you. Ethics is a violation of your oath to remain impartial and to serve the citizens of Ocean Shores. Now, if a law is broken or a rule is violated, then that's subject to an ethics complaint. Saying something that someone doesn't like is not an ethics complaint. It's saying something that someone doesn't like. And I would like to see this body bring in, and I think MRSC could probably provide it. Before you do anything further with this, I would like to see someone brought in to give all the council members a briefing on what real ethics, what the intent of a real ethics policy is. And also, I think it would be helpful to provide that to the public. Everyone has their own definition. We've spent a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money on things that may or may not qualify. So I'd like you to bring someone in to brief the council that's sitting and the community on what an actual ethics violation is. Thank you.
City of Ocean Shores. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Several questions here. Again, I'll go back to the first reading on this guideline. I really feel that the citizens need to know a little bit more and a little bit time involved in reading all of the document. Somebody commented on the public records requests and how many we've had. There's a reason for that. And there may be more coming up, but there is a reason that us citizens are asking for public records. There's a sentence in there where again it says that only the person involved can be do the complaint. The charter in the city of Seattle, even their wording, which is on, it looks like section 16.090, complaints, investigations, hearings, and enforcements, it says any person may file a complaint alleging a violation of this chapter. All right, and many of us may not agree with all of the politics in Seattle, but their guidelines do state any citizen or any person. Does not have to be a resident, does not have to be the actual person that was involved. It can be a person that is located standing next to them. So take that into consideration. And please let us have a second hearing on this. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Kurt Dooley, I live on Dolphin Avenue. I understand why you want to change the ethics rules, I get it. And it's to reduce the number or eliminate the number of what you would consider false complaints. But I think that's just kind of part of the cost of having an open government. And I know we're talking about ethics complaints rather than criminal complaints, but under Washington state law, a complainant may be the victim or a bystander. But this council insists that, quote, third-party information is not an acceptable detail for a finding of sufficiency. The violation cited must be experienced by the affected party who must submit the complaint. This, to me, is ridiculous, and it's a little bit absurd. What if the affected party is a child? What if the affected party is traumatized by the ethics violation and refuses to submit a complaint with their, quote, correct name, address at which mail may be personally delivered to the submitter, and a telephone number at which the submitter may be contacted? Because what if the accused council member uses that information to contact the affected party and cajole them into dropping the complaint? Under these suggested changes, that would mean that there would be no ethics violation to begin with. And that isn't necessarily true. To me, this seems to be a rather obvious attempt to squash existing ethics complaints against certain council members, complaints that I might add are well past the 30-day requirement for setting up an ad hoc committee to investigate and report their findings. It's bad enough that this council thinks they're qualified to investigate their own ethics complaints with an ad hoc committee versus having an independent outside investigation. Now you're suggesting you don't even need witnesses to conduct an investigation. I respectfully request that this revision be tossed into the scrap heap of embarrassing ideas. And I want to also add that as evidenced by his motion earlier today to remove this from the agenda, it appears again that Council Member Eldowin is the only one who seems to understand or cares what the citizens of this county actually want and what the role of the council is, and that's to represent our interests, not your own. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't have to raise my hand again. So, Jane Shattuck, Ocean Shores resident, and I want to say that Joe DeVore hit it 100%. Kurt did too. And I think by the majority you heard here today, a citizens ethics committee is what we really need. I would like to ask to begin with, I want to know why in this, that all the proposed changes to this ethics code were not highlighted in red. There were certain divisions, especially in section 9, that have been referenced frequently here that were not highlighted in red, even though they were changes. Those three, I agree with everybody, those three phrases, the who has been directly involved, third-party information is not acceptable detail, and the violation cited must be experienced by the affected party should not be accepted at all. All three of those. You're infringing on rights also. It's very important to remember that council members are public servants that serve their constituents. Consequently, their actions have repercussions on all citizens, whether experienced directly or indirectly. The email that I sent to all of council this morning gave several instances, past and pending, where an action had been directed at an individual but had adverse effects on all citizens. I think way more research needs to be done in this. Jan brought up Seattle. At multiple cities that I looked up their ethics codes, they all say anyone can file a complaint. And excuse me. Additionally, I would suggest that the council review paragraph A of Seattle's Code of Ethics 4.10.020, purpose, and read through that because it is excellently written and it aligns with what I would envision for our ethics code. Finally, it was mentioned that certain modifications were implemented with the aim of curbing unwarranted complaints. In various cities, complaints undergo initial scrutiny by a director or ethics officer to determine their validity. I can't even say it now. Sorry. Thank you. Before reaching a committee. While I acknowledge variations in the structures of these ethics committees, their structuring is different. Exploring the premise of this approach would prove beneficial in preventing baseless complaints from moving forward and thereby saving the valuable time on an ethics board and restricting the rights of individuals to file a complaint. And this was brought up over and over. If we had a citizens board that was like this, that had a director and an officer that could look at the complaints beforehand and see if they had just cause to even move forward to a committee, it would clean up the process also. So I asked what everybody else asked.
At the time, Debbie B's citizen. Sorry, I'm having a bit of stage fright. I'm not a public speaker. I would like to reiterate what everybody said, just for the sake of transparency and the camaraderie of our city, to make this a first hearing, look at it again, bring it back, maybe add a couple of citizens to the ad hoc committee that looked at doing this, and even, I'm sorry, I'm having a meltdown now. I'm done. Thank you.
I am a former city council member, but in another state. So I will clarify it by that. I understand what it's like for you to sit up here and make the decisions that you do, but I am asking you to pause with this, table this, and look at this. We on a council work for our residents. Our residents don't work for us. And in fairness, it's very difficult to sit on a council and have the person next to you that has possibly had a violation, or one of your employees that has had a violation that you personally know and like. It's very, very difficult for you to be that governing person, to say yes or no. When I was on the council, it was about the same size city as we have here. And it is imperative that we be transparent to our residents, that our residents feel that they have a say, and that we let the residents have a part of this, and they should be the ones that are looking. I agree, you can get many frivolous complaints. I've seen them over and over, but it is not our responsibility to govern ourselves or to look at the person that we deal with every day and say, I'm not gonna do it because we're good friends, I don't want to alienate them or do whatever. We are human beings. I realize that those kinds of things can happen. But let's not set ourselves up. There's a lot of trust and a lot of healing that needs to happen in this city. It has been a tough few months, and I'm just saying, please, table this, give yourself some time, let some residents be a part of it, and look at it. You have a new council coming in, and this is not the time to be making this decision. Thank you.
A resident of Ocean Shores, and most I just want to add my voice to the majority of what has been said here tonight. But I take it when she said the last few months for politics has been nasty here. I'd say the last 2 election cycles here have been nasty, and in that process, the distrust has just amplified itself, continually getting worse and worse and worse. And to force this down our throats now would not be very palatable to most people. And I really believe that it needs to be citizen-centered, because the taxpayers are the ones that you're working for. Thank you.
To me, I spoke with Councilmember Alduin this very morning, and John and I, Mayor Martin, have had the same conversation. I said that I will always tell you when it's the mayor's responsibility versus the council's responsibility, and the council's responsibility when it's the mayor's responsibility. I do think that you guys have great input into the guidelines and the ethics, but I do find it highly inappropriate that those weren't written down as a discussion, and then when the new council came, or whomever that new council was going to be, because ultimately whatever decision you guys make, they're the ones that are going to have to do everything, and they might have different ideas. From the ethics standpoint, currently what we have is extremely subjective. I get the ethics complaints, and then I get the council hasn't done anything with it yet. When are we going to see something? And that's just not fair. All of those things need to be clarified, whether that be by a committee or the council. That makes no difference to me. It sounds like you have your answer from the residents, but I just think this should have just stayed a discussion, knowing that a whole new council was going to come in either way. And that's that.
So after Don Scott, can you hear me okay?
We got you, Don.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a couple of comments. I want to remind people that maybe weren't here years ago when this ethics document was formed. It took the council, I'd say, at least 3 months of deliberations off and on in order to come up with a document. So I agree with people that say it should not be rushed. I have a few comments on the particular thing. I want to talk about the preamble. We look on page 125. On the preamble, there are 3 bullet points. There used to be 4. The 4th one should be put back in again, and it says, comply with both the letter and the spirit of the laws and policies affecting operations of the government. That should go back in. I'm sure Mrs. Rodman will be very happy to see that something is there about regarding abiding by the laws. In the very next paragraph, it makes reference to city council members shall swear to uphold council guidelines at the first council meeting. Well, I don't know how you swear to uphold council guidelines. What you want to swear to uphold is the council code of ethics. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe you have to do both, but certainly the code of ethics should be mentioned. And I want to go over to the paragraph number section 9 that's been talked about. I have a number of changes in the wording that I'd like to this. Some of you may already have it, but I want to say most important to me is what's required, other than opening it up to more than just the directly involved person. I want to see a paragraph added between the 3rd and the 4th paragraph that reads as follows. The ad hoc committee will evaluate and act on the submitted complaint only with regard to the alleged violations as stated in the complaint. Other violations that may have occurred but that are not mentioned in the complaint shall be ignored. That's very important because we just went through an ethics complaint where the council found that person in effect guilty of something that was never complained about. In fact, the main complaint was never even acted on. And if you heard the old saying that's very popular on our national politics, show me the man and I'll find you the violation. That's exactly what happened. And you look it up who said that. You'll be very shocked to hear that. But that was a very, very poor application of the council guidelines to go and invent a violation that was not complained about. So I do want to have this delayed a little bit. I have things in writing that I'd like to submit, but one or more people may already have mine. And I really miss not just having the red line, but also having the strike throughs. Because that missing bullet point that I mentioned earlier, that's the essence of the whole ethics situation by the laws. And it was left out. And I think I should go back in again. But I do want to see a paragraph added that makes sure that we don't go off on a tangent and invent violations that are not being requested.
Time, Mr. Williams.
Eric?
There's been he pointed to me first, is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So there's been a couple comments tonight on employees. And as roles of council members, we do not get involved in employees. That is a strict no-no by MRSC and WCIA. The mayor is the boss, and any complaints of staff should go to the mayor, because also we have unions involved, and public does not get involved in those conversations. That becomes through the mayor. So if you have a concern, it should not come to us, it should come to the mayor. So having a public oversight for staff just isn't something that is in our bailiwick, or nor should be with the citizens. If you do have a concern with staff, you would direct that to the mayor, and the mayor follows the appropriate channels to take action if it's deemed that a violation has occurred. So I just wanted to set the record straight. And second, we were elected by the people, at least the majority of us sitting up here, and we are remaining unbiased. And I would hope that you would think that we would come into a meeting unbiased and that we'll listen to your comments. But already tonight, through several of your comments, you've accused us basically of not being ethical and not being to the point where we can be unbiased. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think you give us, it's not funny, you don't give us the benefit of the doubt. I listen. I don't come with my mind made up. I wanted to hear tonight. I wanted to hear conversations tonight. And sometimes when you get into the weeds and you accuse us of being unbiased and not being able to make a rational decision, then that completely throws out what we're trying to accomplish. Part of what started this is we had an ethics complaint based on an emoji that was submitted. That is not an ethics violation. We're going to make this, and third party, kind of where we were heading with that whole third party conversation. If you've witnessed something, that's not third party. You've witnessed it. You don't have to be the person that was a victim of it. But if you were sitting there and you saw that happen, absolutely, you are a witness to that. And part of the thing is if you don't have a witness and it's only a he said, she said, how can we ever, or how can anybody ever come to a decision or a conclusion based on one side says one thing, the other side says another thing, if there's no witness? So, and part of what we were getting when we sat down as ad hoc committee members to go over these ethics violations, we interview people, we ask them questions, we have their statements that they've submitted. And 9 times out of 10, there is no proof. It is a he said, she said. That's where we're trying to get away from. We want proof. We want that conversation to happen. Now, I'm not opposed to holding this for a second reading. I don't know that that was ever our intention. Our intention was to get this out to the public by the end of the year. We said we'd work on it. We are. And we are doing our policy as far as ethics complaints. We finish one, we start the other one. We don't have enough people at this point, considering it's only people that aren't running for election that can serve on them, to handle all of the ethics violations that have come in. So we're asking to grant us a little bit of leeway to be able to go ahead and finish doing those. We have one left to handle, and we'll do it by the end of the year. But give us time, and these changes we've made clarify what our policy is, and we put it in writing so you can see that we will be assigned one at a time. When we are finished doing it, we will move on to the next one. And those changes are to memorialize what we have been working on. And I'm not going to monopolize anymore, but I guess part of me is upset because I feel like here I am being accused of being, I can't be unbiased, and I don't think that's fair.
Rich.
I'm going to tread carefully. I appreciate Mr. Williams and the majority of the comments, and he always has a lot of questions. I am deeply concerned that he has heard something out of an executive session that's supposed to be private. And even worse, based on things he was saying, he didn't hear the correct thing. So I'm not going to discuss what we discussed in executive session, but he was not correct in his summation of what actually happened in there. So once again, I'll remind all council members, we don't talk about what goes on in executive session, because if we are going to start doing that, I've got a lot of things to say. We all have different comprehension levels. The very first word, page 129 of our agenda, under section 9, says, any person, comma. We've talked about, I'm not a resident. We've talked about, I only work here. We've talked about things like that. It says the very first word is any person. So what is it that let's get upset about differences of opinion. Let's not get upset about facts. These ladies did a lot of work here, and some of the audience didn't even read the work that they did and are mad at some of us for just reading this, but it says to me any person. So I don't know why you're mad about or even would make statements about things that aren't true. Number 2, has been directly involved. Doesn't mean you're the victim. It means you were there. We have had some ethics complaints that were 5th person. 5th person. You know how much fun it was investigating some of those things? Not 1st person, 2nd person, 3rd person, 5th. I think you guys have done a great job. Could we all come behind you and amend some things and throw stones at some of your work? Well, that's America, I guess. So I think you've done a really good job. I could also see some things, if we want to, that we can amend slightly. But when I'm listening to the audience, I'm hearing that not everybody can make a complaint. Not true. I'm hearing that only the person or the victim can make a complaint. Not true. So I think they did a really good job, and we should possibly make a change or two. And as far as conducting you know, in government, everything moves slow. You know what else happens in government? We can make changes. This policy was done a few years ago. We're talking about an update. Maybe the new council wants to make another update. But do we just not do things? Do we just stop and not do things? Sometimes steps are okay.
So,
Catherine.
so I want to, I'm mindful of 2 things that hit me really hard when they were mentioned. I don't know how we missed how we left out public communication to council on the first page of council guidelines. I have that double starred. My apologies. We've got all the way through here, council guidelines for communications. We just missed that, and I can put that in. It's a simple fix. The other thing is, I don't know how I missed the 4th bullet point, which was the first bullet point in the preamble, comply with both the letter and the spirit of the laws and policies.
It was redundant. We had it in the preamble. I think that's why we pulled it out.
Oh, you're
It's
right.
because
Okay. So it's redundant. It's repetitive. So in the interest of not trying to make this into what was a 15-page document and a 17-page document, we tried to remove some of the redundancies with, so I can fix the public communications to council. And the last thing I will say is I've been on this council for 5 years. We have talked about redoing these guidelines ever since I got to council. Every time we say at the end of the year, council says, oh, let's kick it down the road to the next council. You know, we can be bouncing this thing around till 2027, and it will never get any better. We've been playing with this, and I agree with Rich, and then I'll go silent. This is a document that the next council can change if they choose to. They can make it more clear. They can set up an ethics committee if they choose to. But right now, we need to fix this stuff because we are stuck. This council has been stuck for 6 months dealing with frivolous ethics complaints. So go ahead, file an ethics complaint on me, folks, because it's been abused, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we bring this back to the next council meeting.
We still would have discussion even if with it, but okay. So we got a motion, and a second, further discussion. Richard.
So one of the things that first I want to say that what Lisa said and what Rich said was very appropriate. What Catherine said was very appropriate. What I wanted to make a motion on before Frank made a motion is I would like to see this separated into two things, the council guidelines and a second, the ethics. And I think that the council can move on the council guidelines portion, but I absolutely think that the ethics should be brought back another time. And on that note, I would invite everybody, council members and members of the audience, go to mrsc.org and search on what it says about ethics, and it gives a whole bunch of examples of cities that have done individual city ethics code, and it's very informative. I also read the RCW about ethics, and in reality, what we have witnessed, as Catherine has said, what we have witnessed is a whole bunch of frivolous ethics complaints that have nothing to do with money and gifts and the things that are actual ethics violations as outlined by the RCW. So I would like to make a motion.
We're having discussions.
I would like, before I can make a motion, we have to finish Frank's motion.
Right.
Okay, so I would like to see this broken up into two parts. And Catherine's shaking her head no, enlighten me, because I'm always willing and anxious to hear the other opinions in the room.
Well, do we have any more discussion? Because we do have a motion. Allison, did you have?
Yeah, being a part of this ad hoc committee, our intent was to make this something that made sense for filing. Like Catherine has said, everybody knows there have been so many complaints filed that are not true ethics complaints. Liking a Facebook post, looking at somebody the wrong way, talking in the wrong tone of voice. There are just all these things that have been done. And our goal was to make something that was clear and made sense. I mean, I was a proponent when I went into this ad hoc, and I said, you know what? Forget it. Throw it out. Let's just go with the state guidelines. Go with the state ethics complaints. And I'm kind of at that point right now to go back to that. Because what I have heard and the accusations made, I am not happy about. And yes, those of you can say I'm throwing another temper tantrum or whatever. And you can laugh. But the work that has been done by Catherine and Lisa and myself was to make things better and to make more sense. And for you have elected people on this council. Yes, I was appointed to this council. But as a member, we are listening for what people want. And when we have had ethics complaints filed, like Rich said, fifth, sixth hand, people that were nowhere around when certain things happened. It is absolutely ridiculous, and that is the kind of stuff we are trying to prevent.
Okay, so we have any more discussion? Richard?
I have one more comment that I wanted to throw out there. How many times have we heard the council is violating the 30-day rule that they imposed? Not true. Has never been true. What the ethics currently says is that the ethics committee has 30 days after it has been brought to the ethics committee, not when it has been brought to the city council. And so many of the complaints I have heard in this discussion and read, the people don't understand what we're actually talking about, it appears. So anyway, that's what I had to say.
Okay. Lisa?
Just one, you had asked a question of why shouldn't we separate those? What we're trying to do is we have two different policies in two different places, and we're trying to make it as a council guidelines document, including ethics. We want one document that is our place to go for what we have. And this was our suggestion, and we're having a conversation about it. If you don't like it, great, change it. Make a motion to change it. But we did this for clarification and ease of reference. So you're not going from one place to the other to find what our guidelines are, including ethics.
Richard?
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table, and the table is to bring it back at the next council meeting. So, Catherine.
So I do want to speak to the motion. Nothing is going to change between then and now. This isn't an ordinance. At some later date, it can be changed by another council. But we've kicked the can down the road on this long enough. I will vote no on bringing it back. I want us to vote today.
Okay. Rich?
What about a couple of those changes on paper that need to be done?
They would, when we submit the final, it will include that public communications between board reports and staff reports. That's the one that was, I don't know how I missed it. It had to have been a brain bubble.
Okay, Frank?
I think that we should be passing a complete document. To be passing it, it's not complete, and just a better reason to bring it back at the next meeting. You'll have time to make the corrections.
Okay. Any further discussion before we vote on Richard?
So I appreciate what Councilmember Elduin is saying, but I also appreciate what Catherine is saying. And I would like us to get something concrete down, and this is a great start. And we can come back at the very next council meeting and convene another ad hoc committee to tweak the existing guidelines. So I'm with Catherine. Let's vote on this.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? Okay, so So the motion is that we're going to bring this back at the next council meeting. So we'll make no decisions tonight. So that's the motion, right, Frank? That's it. Okay. So all in favor of Frank's motion? Yeah. Say, are you in favor of Frank's motion? Okay. So can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Noble.
Abstain.
Councilmember Noble abstains. Councilmember Sprague.
No.
Councilmember Sprague is a no. Councilmember Elduin.
Yes.
Councilmember Elduin is a yes. Councilmember Klein.
No.
Councilmember Klein is a no. Councilmember Scott.
No.
Councilmember Scott is a no. Councilmember Wills.
No.
Councilmember Wills is a no. Councilmember Hartman.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman is yes. That's 2 yeses, 4 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, so council. So either we make a motion because you want to vote on it, or
I make a motion approving the city council guidelines as a whole document.
Second.
okay, discussion. Frank?
I can't vote for this because it's not complete. It has errors in it. And I think we should bring back a complete, correct document to vote on.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the first time that we've brought back we voted on something and passed it with needing one change.
Sarah?
Without being disrespectful, we have to have the audience volume come down. We're missing what council members are saying on the radio and on the live feed. So.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? So all in favor of, and we're passing the document as is.
With the one change on public communications.
Got it. Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, could we have a roll call?
Councilmember Noble.
Abstain.
Councilmember Noble abstains. Councilmember Sprague.
Yes.
Councilmember Sprague is a yes. Councilmember Elduin.
No.
Councilmember Elduin is a no. Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein is a yes. Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
Councilmember Scott is a yes. Councilmember Wills.
Yes.
Councilmember Wills is a yes. Councilmember Hartman.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman is a yes. That's 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay. All right. So could you please leave? Okay. So the next thing that we're going to move on is executive session.